think I have 3 points I'd like to ask about. First of all, how does this put us in line with federal law?
Well, it would put us out of line with federal law. Federal law, which is currently not being enforced, still does not recognize medical marijuana.
Okay, so it's not being enforced.
That's my understanding, yes.
Does that mean that it can't be enforced, or a different administration or different Justice Department or DEA could enforce it?
As best I know, it is simply not being enforced at this point in time. It's still on the books, but federal enforcement is not being applied.
Okay, so what you're saying is basically what's happening now in Washington is the current administration has said that they're not going to enforce it. That would be much like we could have speed limit laws, but the current Commissioner of Safety Administration could say, we're not going to enforce speed limit laws.
That's my understanding.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was clear on that part. Question number 2, you did mention accidents go up. Will this bill, in your opinion, allow people who just allow compassionate use?
Well, we would think this is a very broad bill. If you look at the list of illnesses that people would be able to qualify for medical marijuana, it is very broad. And that's really our fundamental concern about the bill.
Okay. I've been contacted by psychiatrists that have concerns about it, physicians too. But I guess what I was trying to draw was, is it so broad that there are going to be people driving and smoking marijuana or utilizing it? Okay, my understanding and what I wanted to see if it was limited enough to just those who that was at the end of their road, that couldn't get help anywhere else, and that this may help. But is it written broadly enough where physicians can for other reasons or things that are not maybe as life-threatening or as painful?
Yes, we believe it's written very broadly. We believe a number of other states have passed statutes that are much more focused and much more accomplishing the goal of compassionate use.
That was just what I wanted to ask, to make sure that it was going to be more broad than I think the intent. I understand the car accident phase because as a state trooper I worked many wrecks and arrested many people for DUI, having smoked marijuana, and I can tell you the erratic driving is probably worse than some lower level alcohol intoxication for the driving state.
That's funny.
So the next question I have is, what about the oils that we're hearing about?
There's a lot that we need to learn about marijuana. It seems very likely that there are components of the marijuana plant that are medicinally helpful. In fact, the FDA has approved some already, so that seems pretty clear. Exactly what diseases it will help. You know, there's certainly some evidence in terms of effective procedures, but I think that's, you know, in our minds, the compassionate use program is focused on specific areas and doesn't have a very broad cast, such as chronic diseases. And very, very broad. So compassionate use, you know, we think that is what we would all like, especially you hear stories of kids who have responded so dramatically. And the oils, you know, there are a lot of components in them, but they are relatively enriched, many of them in cannabidiol, which may be an active component that is helping the kids in this particular area. Not enough research has been done. One of the best evidence synthesis groups in the world came out just last week with an evidence synthesis review of the world's literature on this particular issue. And even on this issue, there is not enough evidence to come to a scientific conclusion. So compassionate use is in when you don't have enough evidence for a scientific conclusion, but there is some evidence and people are willing to take a reasonable risk for their child or for their disease.
Thank you, Doctor. And so the department, just for the record, would be opposed or defer on this bill?
That's correct.
It is opposed or defer?
We would be opposed.
Okay. Chairman Tony, that's now.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor, for being here today. You made some statements that confused me. I haven't seen the statistic on the Colorado increase. I have seen statistics that Tennessee leads the country in DUIs related to overuse of prescription drugs. So I guess everybody has their little quirks, but, I'd like to see those statistics. But you said a couple of things that trouble me. You mentioned youth using this. You're not saying this bill is so broad that doctors could prescribe this to youth to use as recreational use?
No, there is always the issue with potential diversion in these types of situations, and certainly in other states that has been an issue that has to be dealt with. And so if the more broadly that it's written, the more broadly we believe that marijuana would be available. So,
But you're not suggesting the doctor would write prescriptions for that, way. I mean, because you mentioned pregnant women too. I don't think, and I know there's some pregnant women too that may use marijuana, they may use other drugs, but they're not being prescribed by a doctor, and that's just your responsibility. And we're not going to be able to, legislate, morality or can't fix stupid, so to say. So I don't know why that statement was there actually put, because I don't think doctors do that. Well, let me ask you this: if you are talking about the broadness of the bill, and I think we've had testimony from other doctors that thought there were more benefits from doing this. If this bill were, say, amended now to just include cancer, MS, epilepsy, Crohn's disease, PTSD, and end-of-life issues, would and tighten it up a whole lot, that's eliminating probably 2/3 of the original bill. How would you feel more comfortable about it if we just limited those areas?
I think that's certainly a step in the right direction, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going next on the list, Chairman. You were excused. Representative Sexton, you are next on the list.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. A couple of questions. In her bill, it says, and I'll paraphrase because it might not be the actual word, any other medical condition or treatment prescribed by a practitioner and approved by the Department of Health. What does that mean exactly? Or what could that mean?
Well, we would hope that that would mean that there would be a partnership that would be involving the Department of Health, and that's something that we would certainly support.
Okay. And then also in her bill, it talks about dosage and frequency. What would dosage and frequency be?
Could you read the statement related to that?
Let's see. A patient or guardian consents to writing to allow the patient's medical use of cannabis, acquisition of cannabis, the dosage and the frequency of the medical use by the qualifying patient. What would be is there stuff out there that talks about frequency of use and dosage and strengths?
There's not a lot known about it. Dosage is tricky because this is not a quantity that we're used to. And different strains have different amounts of active ingredients. And so it's a little bit difficult to talk about exactly what dose. So that may vary depending on the source of the medical cannabis. And then without knowing the dose, it's difficult, but the frequency gets trickier to understand.
Is there, in your knowledge, is there any kind of, with a lot of prescriptions, they have dose and frequencies tied into the prescribing information. Anything related to that that's out there as far as prescribing information, doses and frequency, anything of that nature?
Yeah, there have been studies that have tried to look at that. They are just very, very early in the process. These types of medical marijuana bills have not provided the type of clinical trial information that we're used to in terms of the practice of medicine. And so we don't learn as much from the good things and the bad things. That just is kind of how, by not having it in a very tightly controlled clinical trial, you lose some of that ability to identify both the benefits and the adverse effects.
Most prescription medications have to go through an FDA approval process,
Yes.
as you said. Has this ever gone through an FDA approval process?
Tetrahydrocannabidiol has gone through that. It's the primary active ingredient, and it is available, FDA approved. There are some other components, including cannabidiol, which are currently in trial. And so that process is moving. But I think here we're talking about illnesses that really are urgent now, and it would be great if we could take care of them now.
So are you saying then, because in clinical trials you're only approved for the things that the FDA approves you for, so would this be considered something of the effect of going outside the scope of what the studies or FDA is approving them for?
Clearly, this would go outside of the scope of what the FDA has approved this for, yes.
Okay, and then in this legislation, is there any limits on age or anything? I don't see any age requirements. I see it's based on some types of diseases, but.
I don't see the age requirements.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is it'd be outside the realm of what FDA has approved already. We don't really know what dosage and frequency may or may not be, for the most part for this. So it would be a guess, I guess. And then there's no limits on age and that sort of stuff. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions here, but I just want to make the members in the body aware. We had this committee until 4:30. We had every intention, and still do have every intention of trying to vote on this bill in some form or fashion today. And so we don't want to limit the debate, so I want us to continue to limit or do the discussion. But if we run through time, it may be that we just pull this bill up in a week from now just to vote on it. So all the discussion we're going to have is today. The next person is Representative Journey.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here today. You mentioned it's illegal in the country, federal government. But you do have the FDA doing studies on it. I've got the VA prescribing in the states where it's legal. And I'm sure that well, the studies that have been done, are you concerned with those medications in people driving?
The marijuana is able to impair motor coordination. There's no question about that.
Right.
And so, yes, I believe that we're looking at the experience in states so far. That is one of the clear messages that's come out of that. And normally, what you find is that people that are impaired with multiple agents, not just marijuana. I just reported the marijuana data from California because it was the clearest.
Multiple.
But,
Well, that's recreational. I mean, I'm afraid we're confusing recreational and medical back and forth, and I think that, so pretty much you said anything that the FDA comes out with, you're going to be pretty much affect driving.
I think you will find warnings, and if you look at the FDA warnings on tetrahydrocannabinol right now, you will find warnings about coordination, yes.
Oh, I'm not having a problem with warnings, and that's good. And there are a lot of people that don't drive, that are under 16. I think this bill would help. And I just, we talk about the broadness of it. I mean, you took a Hippocratic oath, right? I mean, and so we do no harm. And I think that at some point we have to trust our doctors to say, okay, I'm not going to prescribe it for someone who's pregnant. I'm not going to prescribe it. If you think it can genuinely help someone, and at the end of the day, the doctor prescribes it, I got a bill that's making me money. I got pain and suffering that's being relieved, and I got a doctor prescribed it. And we have to benefit that with driving. Someone may do that. I can't. The speed limit, I can put a speed limit sign up, but unless I'm sitting in the car with them saying slow down, I can't stop that. So there's always going to be fraud and abuse. I got handicap placards all over the place, but don't take the law away from me because I use them. The spaces. So I can't. There's always going to. That's a good. And so I guess it troubles me that the administration, on behalf of the people, would come out and say something that is broad, that there's more harm than good. And I guess the 68,000 people I represent in District 60, I would say it was the reverse, that there's more good than harm. So, but thank you for testifying today.
Representative Johnson.